I would say with each passing day, the trade possibility and likelihood continues to go up. I don't know what percentage points or whatever it is, but I don't see it lingering forever.
So to not radio our good friend Frank.
Right.
He said he was asked by JD Bunkus on the JD Bunkus podcast about, if he doesn't sign, like how long will it be? How long will they wait on a potential trade? And that was sort of the way he led into that. And that was his answer, saying that with every passing day. And it's just terrifying. I don't want this to happen. I hate that we're here, but it's starting to feel a little bit more likely. You read in the Athletic today, Jonas Siegel, like the smoke is billowing out of Frank's guns here.
They say where there's smoke, there's fire. There's smoke.
Okay. I've been known to make a phone call every once in a while before the show starts.
I've seen that.
And I did talk to one team. Heard a few things. I talked to one team that said, as far as they were concerned, the Leafs are not taking calls on Willie Nylander. So that tells me one of two things: that Brad Treliving isn't taking calls on Willie Nylander, or this particular team
is on the 10-team list.
Maybe one of the few that that aren't involved on it.
Yeah.
But in saying that, there's no question in my mind, or I think in anyone else's, that they want this guy signed, sealed, and delivered for the next 5, 7, 8 years.
I would say there's no incentive to talk to teams, assuming they're comfortable letting the 10-team no trade kick in, which I assume they are. There's no rush here, so they can work out with Willie, find out what they want, have their back and forth. And if they need to go to teams at that point, I think they can. The one thing that stands out to me is the article that from Jonas there talked about how far they are apart.
The Athletic you're talking about?
The Athletic,
okay.
Yeah. About how far they are apart. What really strikes me more than anything is the idea that it's like, all right, Willie's going to cost this. The cap is going to go up. You're going to have to pay him this. I would love to see a short-term deal for William Nylander. Like, if I'm the Leafs, I would push for that. I would push for the opportunity to pay him a little less, still allow him to get another big payday. Like, the Leafs window here with Matthews, Marner, Nylander primes is the next 3 years.
Yeah. That just makes no sense if you're Louis Gross. You're just strictly seeing it one-sided for the Leafs.
I disagree. It's a chance for Willie before he's 30 to say, now I want my 8-year deal.
I disagree too.
Yeah,
because
no.
now he's at his value is at its highest it's ever been.
He's trying to sign a contract in the vicinity of $70 to $80 million.
Yeah.
Like anybody else, you run the risk. And I think, again, Landeskog, career-ending injury.
Yep.
It's just, there are no guarantees.
Get your money when you can.
And lucky for him, he did. Landeskog did max out, I think, after their Stanley Cup. But Willie won't want to take that chance, and neither will Louis Gross want his client to take that chance.
So let me ask you this then. Why do we not apply that exact logic to Auston Matthews? That why would he want to take the risk of Landeskoging, or why would he want to sign a 2-3 year deal? How is it different?
Yeah. Again, Austin's going to sign a lesser deal, and he will still be the highest paid guy in the league.
Mm-hmm.
It's apples to oranges. They don't apply the same, because they will tell Willie, if you don't fall into our slot, you will not sign here. We cannot go anywhere else. It's a different negotiation.
And with Matthews to say, if you don't fall into our slot, we'll make it bigger.
we might have to make it bigger, and they will not do that for both players.
Yeah,
you can only do that with one franchise type of player, and the Leafs made it abundantly clear it's Matthews. It's not Willie.
Can I tell you what scares me a little bit if you trade Nylander, and you're going to love this?
Everything.
A lot of it. How much leverage you hand Mitch Marner immediately. If you turn around and trade Willie going into this season and break up that core, you want to spend some money on a D-man or whatever, all of a sudden next summer, Mitch Marner goes, you can't also lose me. I play the most. I get 100 points. I'm a Selke nominee.
I could be maybe arguably more valuable than 34 to you.
I mean, you could, whatever case
right?
you would, sure. And at that point, you lose the ability to say, well, we can't afford to lose. Right now, it's like, we've talking about they want to break up the core four. You consider trading Mitch. Part of that is that you have a right winger in Willie who scores 40 and gets 80, 90 points. If you don't have Willie, all of a sudden, if you're Marner, it's like, okay, pay me again, boys. And that to me is a tough spot for the Leafs.
Yeah. And Marner already won that last time when everybody said that he should be an $8 million player. He argued based on his production that he should be a hell of a lot closer to Matthews than the 8 or the 7.5 they first started negotiating. And he made them realize it meant 10-9.
It's his greatest win as a professional. No argument.
And he'll win that one again if the Leafs want to re-sign him, or he goes and becomes the highest paid player on another team.
Yeah. And I think that's what should happen, but you can't not have Willie at that point.
So if the Leafs do what's been rumored for 7 summers now and actually trade William Nylander, which is something that terrifies me to the depth of my soul. I hate the idea of trading him. But what should they be looking to get back in that trade? Because you're not a rebuilding team here. It's a kind of a unique spot where the team is right smack dab in the middle of its competitive window.
Don't think so much about a physical trade where Nylander leaves and a player comes back. You got to think of it as slots. So you're not slotting a physical player back.
You're
for
saying
Nylander.
$7 million is what you're
opening up a chance to get somebody that can maybe be worth $7 or $7.5 million as a defenseman. So even if you traded Nylander for, say, 2 first-rounders and a top prospect, you open up the salary slot to go get a defenseman.
But Willie's a guy with value. You can get a human back.
You got to get a player back. You're going to lose 40
goals. You just buy
goals.
a contract. You just buy a contract. That's the money.
Yeah, I know. Okay, but the idea that constantly is in my mind comes up a lot is Brett Pesce from Carolina.
Yeah.
He's a guy who needs a new contract too, I think.
Yeah.
And probably about what Willie's been making.
Okay,
would be the number.
So trade Willie for first rounders and prospects, and then sign him.
Wait till he's a UFA. Wait till the following year.
Or
like this summer, could they trade Willie for Pesce?
What is Pesce? Pesce's a 1 year away from unrestricted free agency, right?
He is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Sam, you may be able to beat me on this.
I'm currently Googling as hard as I can.
Google it hard.
Would you want Pesce or Orlov?
Pesce has 1 year left at 4.025. So basically $4 million. He's 28 years old.
I'd sooner want a defenseman right away if you were to trade Nylander this summer.
Yeah.
But say you decide it's Orlov and you go sign him to a deal for, I don't know, 7 times 5.
Yeah.
Then you trade Nylander for 2 or 3 first rounders. That's not not good.
No, it's great. I mean, it
doesn't work for you.
I don't mind it.
Are those picks going to score 40 goals for you for a team that already
I'm going to tell you what it's going to do, Sammy. It's going to go into next March with a lot more bullets in your gun to go get somebody if you wanted somebody.
Okay. So another
understand?
So it's currency.
Another year after they crash out of the playoffs because they can't score enough goals.
Well, unless you spend those first at the deadline, as he's talking about, to turn that into something, some offense.
Yeah. And
the teams, they stopped scoring.
They stopped scoring
in the second round.
With him here.
No, but he scored. He was literally the only member of the core 4 that scored in the second round.
And I'm not just convinced that they didn't advance in the playoffs because they didn't have enough scoring. Okay.
Yeah, that's become a public.
Come on.
They
get better on the blue line. Get more. Get goaltending that you can count on. I mean.
Here's the thing,
Kip. Get tougher.
They
get bigger.
They scored 2 goals in the last 7 games of playoffs. The last 2 against Tampa and then all 5 against Florida. 2 goals they topped out at. They finished 9th in the regular season in goals for. And that sounds okay, but there's 16 playoff teams. So 9th out of 16, you're suddenly one of the lesser offensive teams in the playoffs. Like, there's no doubt to me you're going to lose Bunting. You do need some offense here. And I agree that their decor needs something. They need to get better. They have to add there. It ain't good enough. But you also need offense.
If you lose Willie, so your 3 offensive players that you'll have will be obviously Matthews, Tavares, and Marner, okay? And we talk about the
nice.
Sure. We talk about the burden that's been put on those guys over the past few years in terms of minutes, in terms of everything, and then burning out towards the playoffs. So you're going to take away one of the 4 guys that contributes to the, and then how are you going to replace that offense? You have to trade them for offense.
You just do, Sammy. You just do.